Welcome to Across the Pond.
Across the pond.
That's what we're calling it. Me and my brother James Matthewson. You guys, you know and love James Matthewson, BBC contributor, Sky News contributor, brother from across the pond here. How are you doing today?
Listen, I am. We'll come on to world events. I'm not happy on that front of things, but one thing I am happy about, you'll see, and this will happen every month now as we continue doing these. But it's getting lighter and lighter here, so we've got another hour now of daylight. Because this time, kind of a month ago, it would have been pitch black outside, but it's beautiful sunshine. You can see coming in the window here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's still very cold, but we're holding out. Edinburgh, we get a little bit of sunshine, everybody goes crazy. So that's what today's been here.
Great. And your lighting looks great. You got the more shine coming here. We got Lynette from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We got Kitty Cat saying, love your discussions. Thank you. We love you. We're glad you're here. Everyone right where you're coming in from in the chat, your city, your state, your country. Some people all tune in from around the world in these across the pond conversations. We got you're coming in from the UK. I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. And what we're going to do is, of course, as we do every week, bridge the gap between what's happening in the UK and the US and Europe more broadly. And now we have war on our hands. So just want to rattle off some of the stuff that's happened. Obviously, as we know, Iran and Israel have launched joint strikes in Iran. We have the Ayatollah, the supreme leader in Iran, has been killed, as well as several levels down in Iranian leadership. We have now that NATO has shot down Iranian missiles over Turkish airspace, which is a significant escalation given, the whole Article 5 thing, attack on one is an attack on all. So we've got that going on. We've got Germany, France, and the UK kind of walking a fine line, trying to figure out how to communicate about this, condemning what Iran is doing, but not fully embracing what the US is doing, given its dubious nature. And of course, we have Donald Trump himself calling Keir Starmer, saying he's no Winston Churchill while in the Oval Office. Well, Trump's no FDR, and this is not World War II. It's not a righteous war. As evil as Iran is, we have no debates about that. But as you know, if you watched my live on Monday, this is not the war is not really on the level right now. So we're going to get into all those details in a second, as well as Spain saying they're not going to get involved at all. So that's just kind of some of the global dynamics here. But so for you in the UK, how is it landing? Just what has it been like since Friday? You've been making the rounds on these news shows talking about this. What's your take?
So Wednesdays here in the UK, we have Prime Minister's questions, right? Which, I mean, the closest thing I think you could probably equate it to in US politics is the State of the Union, right? Because Prime Minister has to come before Parliament and has to take questions from the House in Parliament. Obviously, that doesn't happen during the State of the Union, but he has to stand there in front of the democratically elected people, and he has to take questions. And he has to take questions from the opposition leader as well, so they can grill them on something. I think they normally get 5 or 6 questions. Today was an absolute bloodbath. The Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, she went in on Keir Starmer on this entirely. It's not played that well because publicly Starmer has an opportunity to almost turn things around for himself with this, because he is resisting Trump. He is trying to push back, but we've seen what the immediate result to that is. It's abuse. It's condemnation you get. I mean, immediately what happened was Trump kind of fired off a, verbal tirade about Starmer when he was asked in the Oval Office. That kind of obviously immediately made the British government think, well, all this kind of bootlicking and backside kissing that we've been doing is getting nowhere, it seems, if that's going to be the result. But then they were reassured, I'm told today by sources, by, the US kind of officials behind the scenes. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Relationship still as it is. It's just him saying things. But it's continued to worsen because they're not letting, the UK government are not letting Trump get what he wants, which is to use their air bases to attack. And one particular air base, and I don't know if this has come up in the US media, you'll be able to tell me, Ahmed, but I think the term Chagos Islands maybe something that isn't widely talked about in the US media. It has been here because the UK government have done a deal on these islands that they've occupied for however long to give them back to, I believe, Mauritius. And Mauritius, obviously an island nation, they had them a while back. The real issue here, though, is that on those islands, which are in the middle of the Indian Ocean, on those islands is an air base and a military facility owned by the US called Diego Garcia.
Yes.
And Trump has been back and forth on this. The UK government said they would not sell or give away the islands and do this deal if Trump wasn't happy with it. So, firstly, Trump said, this is last year, yeah, that's fine, you can do it. Then he came back after being lobbied by certain kind of elements like Steve Bannon and Nigel Farage here and stuff, were all very opposed to it. Because it's all about indigenous populations getting reparations, basically. They're all opposed to it because of this military base that's there. And Trump, obviously, when the Iran strikes happened, he's now changed his mind overnight on the deal. He was backing it. Now he's called it that stupid little island, is what he said. We didn't know at first if he was talking about us, right? This
Oh yeah, of
stupid,
course. Yeah.
or if he was talking about
Jesus.
Diego Garcia, because if he'd launched from there, he would have been able to, I don't know, launch more or launch in a more sufficient or efficient way. But
Yeah,
the US military isn't short of places to launch from. You know, it's not like
exactly. Yeah, no, I just wanted to jump in here to tell people because I saw people in the comments saying you're from London. We have someone coming in, Roselle, who is chiming in from London. We see
amazing.
here, yeah, we have Roselle over here. Great. We see Kimmy is in here. What's up? We see Kitty Cat Low. She said hit the heart because it helps folks with the live. Yes, great message. Because if you smack that live button, you have unlimited likes. Smash it, it boosts the video and the algorithm for us. We have Tracy Veneer said, good morning, my favorite people. What is up? Good morning to you. And appreciate you all being here. And also subscribe if you have not already to me at ahmedbaba.news. Support our independent journalism, become a paid subscriber if you can. And also James Matthewson over here doing independent media over there in the UK. So we've got, again, across the pond conversations here. Maureen from Chicago. What is up? So we have global audience here tuning in to figure this out. And yeah, I mean, we have the people resisting this, but I think the UK, I saw they agreed to allow US to use their bases for defensive, but not offensive. And that's really the sticking point here is that you guys remember Iraq. I remember Afghanistan. The one time Article 5 of NATO was invoked was
Yeah,
for us after 9/11 for the US. And then
yeah,
you had our European allies stood up, but there are lessons to be learned from that. And that is what's reverberating here is that memory, what happened with Tony Blair, with W. Bush, and the way
yeah,
yep, exactly. And the way Iraq and Afghanistan were handled, the regime change war, and which is insane because that war, as horrible as it was, in the lead up to it, they made more of a public case to the people. Beforehand, they actually went to the
yeah,
UN. Like
yeah.
believe it or not, there was
Colin
more
Powell,
process.
the
Colin
Colin
Powell.
Powell with the little bit of explosive material, all of that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They actually had a little bit more process. So this, to just go in there and start this strike, the shifting justifications. I mean, the UK. I mean, your heads are spinning, right? Wondering was there an imminent threat? They go back and forth on that. There clearly was not.
thing.
Then they say 1 second they're doing it for nuclear capabilities, but I thought Trump had told everybody that the nuclear
Yeah,
facilities were already destroyed. It's just back and forth. It's head spinning. The whiplash is insane. And
yeah.
I mean, in Europe, your appetite on the ground, I mean, from the people is probably hell no, right?
Oh god, yeah. I mean, like beyond that. I mean, it's just. I mean, the thing is, and the right are trying to spin it at the moment in a way that if you think this shouldn't be happening, that you're somehow supporting the Iranian regime. Like, I want rid of the Ayatollah. I want rid of that regime, the Iranian revolutionary regime, as much as anyone. Right? Like the most oppressive of women. They're abusive. They make people disappear. Just the same as like the Maduro situation. Right? I'm not going to cry over Maduro. Like, the guy's a bad guy. Do I think, however, that the US should be dropping bombs on that country? Because here's the thing: if the out of all of the potential objectives that they've given in the past few days, which I think has been about 3 identified, right? First one was we're doing this to get rid of nuclear capability. It's self-defense, right? It's the only way for Israel and the US to be safe. The second one was about the people of Iran and freeing the people of Iran. Well, you don't help the people of Iran by killing them. I don't know how that
I
makes any
don't see
sense.
how killing children
You know,
helps people
a
with Iran. No.
hundred schoolgirls, at least, 100 schoolgirls at school dead because you wanted to what? Take out the Ayatollah and the leadership. And the third idea was supposedly regime change. Well, everybody knows you can't change a regime from the air, right? An air campaign can't do that. That's boots on the ground, and that's you take ownership of the country and you hand it over to somebody else. The mess with Afghanistan and Iraq, right? That was exactly what happened there. Nobody wants to see that again, and they know that. They know there's no appetite for that. So they're just kind of doing this halfway house where they're throwing things. But as a result, what's happened is now Iran are throwing their entire ballistic missile stock because they've got nothing to lose now, right? They're just throwing it at all of the neighboring Gulf nations. They've thrown it at Dubai, which listen, it's terrible for anyone to have missiles thrown at you, but we have this very strange situation now in Britain where we had lots of people leave Britain, especially vocal influencers who didn't want to pay tax in Britain anymore, saying Dubai is this amazing lifestyle you can have and all the rest of it. And now those people have had to be brought back here at the taxpayers' expense to be safe because they've had missiles flying over their heads and they've all, been terrified, which is, terrible. I understand that. But like, it's a very difficult situation. It's causing a lot of tensions here. And places like Dubai, places like Qatar, they're not used to being targets in the way that they are right now of Iran. And that risks the whole region being destabilized. And of course, Israel, ever the patient and, loving and compassionate nation of Israel, has gone and decided that it's using this opportunity to further its goals in Lebanon. So it's just gone into Lebanon,
Yeah,
right?
it's doing it. It's they're out of control. They're out of
Yeah.
control, and
Yeah, control.
and
Yeah.
and you're right to talk about how these Gulf states are being targeted. They're targeting bases of other countries as
Yeah.
well in there, so it's pulling Europe in more forcefully. And then you also have, like you said, Israel just going into Lebanon to try to finish off Hezbollah there, just underground incursion, just out of absolute control. Just
Yeah.
Netanyahu's out of his mind right now. We're enabling it,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then
I mean,
and
I saw an interview with him earlier, and and honestly, I've never seen a man in this situation. No matter what you think, and no matter how much you hate another country or a culture, or whatever it is that's driving him, his eyes were glowing.
oh,
He
he's
was
thrilled.
grinning
Oh,
ear to
he's
ear
thrilled.
at the
He's a horrible
opportunity,
human being. He's a horrible
and it's
and
sickening. It
and you
really
will
is.
not find people to defend him. Like I'm married into a Jewish family myself. I've got a lot of liberal Jews, even some more moderate center people hate
Yeah.
Netanyahu universally.
Oh
So
God.
it's not it's just a terrible person. The state of Israel
It's nothing to
aside,
do.
separated from him. Yeah, exactly.
And
So
he has weaponized the safety of Israel and the Jewish people, which is something that is, of course, I support and anybody in their right mind wants to fight against anti-Semitism. And the anti-Semitism of Iran is abhorrent, of course it is. But then there's no difference between Netanyahu's disdain for Arabs and the way that he treats Muslims. And you just think these people in the region are the last people that you want. And it breaks my heart because so much progress was made years ago. People like Yasser Arafat and there were
yeah,
real peacemakers in that region. And this is a region that is, we call it the kingdom of heaven. This is the place that, all of countries like the US that claim to be Christian nations. This is the place where their God is supposedly from. And yet the way that region has just been war torn now for the past 2,000 years, it's just never had a break. It's
exactly.
never
Yeah,
had peace. And
and yeah.
it's heartbreak. It is
Yeah.
heartbreak.
And it's become this zone, this focal point where all these proxy wars, all these proxy battles get fought. There was basically a Russia-US proxy war in Syria with them backing their
Afghan.
interest there, and with Assad, and then in Afghanistan, same thing, and Iraq, and then now to getting back to Iran and the different moving objectives. When it comes to like trying to help the people on the ground there, first off, destabilizing the region does not help them, as we
Yeah.
saw with they would be even worse with Iran, with the geography and the significant population that is significantly larger than Iraq's, 90 million people. If that were to be fully destabilized, imagine what would happen to the region, the rise of extremist groups, all of that. And then also when it comes to potentially doing this regime change, which would involve ground forces, now we're seeing murmurs about how Trump is trying to now back some Kurds on the ground in Iran, which would be insane given how in the first term, if you don't remember, Trump betrayed the Kurds in
Because, yeah,
northern
exactly.
Syria, and and basically
The
let them
Kurds,
get eviscerated by Turkey.
they
They
were
let them,
promised a country in Rojava.
yeah.
They're still trying to set that up. I've
And
met with
the sad part about that is if they
yeah,
held on, the Kurds would have been able to have those Kurds that probably that lost their lives and got obliterated would have been able to partake in the new Syria we see today. So
yeah,
it's
and
like
and
there's
that country only came about because ISIS were only defeated because of the Kurds. You had
exactly,
entire women led armies, but of
yes,
Kurds, and various groups. It's so messy in the region. Some are labeled as terrorist groups, some are labeled as not, and it's difficult to know who's who and what's what. But ultimately, the Kurds as a people stood against ISIS and
yes.
pushed them and drove them from the
And
land.
and
Ultimately,
my main point on that is why would they have an incentive to believe or trust this admin now? Even if it's not
exactly.
the same regional Kurds or if it's he makes deals with proxies on the ground and then betrays them. So I again, it's there's so many layers to why a regime change ground war wouldn't work there, and all the other risks. And then meanwhile, again, if they had thought this through, there's no internet, right? You're trying to build up capacity for dissidents, and
Yeah.
you weren't focused on getting Starlink over there at
No, so
least, like
he's standing up and doing this big speech, with his cap on, with his baseball cap on to the American people, and he's saying to the people of Iran, "What do you mean to the people of Iran? They can't hear you. They're not listening to you because you've not given that infrastructure support to get Starlink to them." I mean,
exactly.
it's just insane because I don't, and I mean, I know we say this a lot, and you and I have both agreed on this, but he hasn't got a clue what he's doing. He hasn't got a clue what he is doing. There used to be people like the likes of John Bolton and stuff, people who I, by the way, resent and despise, but who also know how you do these things and also know the
Even
structure.
Bolton said there's risks to this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for someone like that, the most hawkish of hawks, you just think, my God, what is the point? And it's this constant posturing, this display of strength, this cheering. Did you hear the reporting? I think it came from Al Jazeera. That U.S. Kind of troops and personnel on the around the Gulf were briefed beforehand, and they were told in no uncertain terms that this was a religious war and that
Yes.
Donald Trump was going to start Armageddon by doing that. They gave them all of this because they needed to take out the Antichrist, and they were like really kind of like religious zealotry language being used. And this isn't the normal like God's on our side, the US, all that stuff. This was like full Christian nationalism insanity. And that comes from Pete Hegseth. I mean, undoubtedly.
No, 100%,
Man has a
100%.
Knight Templar tattoo on his chest. I mean, anybody who knows the region and the history of that, and the racial connotations of that, by the way, in wiping
Exactly.
out Muslims and trying to take out Islam.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah, and someone said that that reporting has been challenged, but I actually wanted to pull up to justify it as I saw that actually it wasn't just like Al Jazeera reporting; it was the Military Religious Freedom Foundation said it received more than 200 complaints of that nature about the religious
yeah.
justification. So I do think, you know, regardless, like whether or not I mean, if they they got those complaints, we'll see if they're credible or not. But what I do know is that that doesn't totally diverge from what we've seen from this administration who has operated from a place of Christian nationalism. And then you see Pete Hegseth up there. The way he talks disgusts me, frankly.
He's good.
His today, death, destruction, all these superlatives, and he's up there just giddy about this. And that's not what Americans want right now, or the world. They want calm, steady. Like even, I mean, General Kane. I mean, I disagree with what they're doing. At least his tone was better. But it's like talk about like they're talking about these military objectives, which first off, you're not they're not dismantling the nuclear capabilities. If it was that was an objective, I don't know why over 100 schoolgirls had to die
Yeah,
for
yeah.
nuclear
But
capabilities to be reduced.
schoolgirls weren't working at a plutonium enrichment factory. Like those schoolgirls were in the middle of a city. Like that there isn't nuclear capability being worked on in the middle of Tehran. Like
Yeah.
this is not the those constant changing objectives are just allowing them to cover themselves every time they do anything. And Israel now, it has gone so far that I don't think the US can control Israel. And I think that is, and I mean, I've seen it as a long time that, Netanyahu's kind of a Rottweiler on a leash, for Trump. But I don't think that's the case now. I
No,
think
it's
that, I
not the
think the,
case.
I think the tail is wagging the dog. I think really what's happening now is that they are uh, just doing what they want. And then the US administration will build the rules around that, to
Yeah.
try and accommodate.
And I think the Netanyahu. Before I get to my point, really quick, I want to say appreciate you guys for all you guys been smashing. Y'all been smashing that like button this whole time. We love to see it. We're loving the vibes. I love seeing all the engagement too. Keep engaging in the chat. This is such a poppin' chat right now. Ask questions if you have them for me and James. We're going to try to get to as many as we can. This is fantastic. We love it. And also, if you have not yet, hit subscribe right there at the top to me, Ahmed Baba News, and James Matthewson. And if you can, become a paid subscriber, because that is what backs this work. We're doing independent journalism. And as we see in corporate media, in journalism, period, is under attack. So you have to back those who are doing it independently. So thank you very much for being here. And yes, that Netanyahu point about who controls who, I think right now we're just seeing mutually beneficial corruption and mutually beneficial war happening right here, because Netanyahu and Trump have similar interests at this moment. Netanyahu has since October 7th, which Hamas gave Netanyahu a political lifeline.
Mm.
Um, I have so much anger at Hamas for the destruction that they unleashed. I know we get Israel gets a lot of the heat, but they started that shit. They started they accelerated it in a way that did not serve the Gazan people whatsoever, and it gave Netanyahu exactly what he wanted,
I've
which
been waiting
was
for it. Yeah, waiting for that
he
excuse.
was waiting for that excuse to wage war, and then now he's used that for years now, coming up on 3 years, to essentially now coming on 3 years after eviscerating what he did to the Palestinians. It's disgusting, and then now because he needs war to stay in power, he can't have a moment of peace, and that's what people miss. Netanyahu is just going to go from battle to battle to battle, because when things die down, eyes will look back at him. He was facing protests over his attacks on the judiciary. People forget the context of what happened before October 7th. He was politically almost out. He had to, and then in order to keep power, he let the far right into his coalition. So now he has no choice but to push it forward, because out of his own personal political survival. So that is what is happening with Netanyahu. Now bring Trump term 2. Trump is
Yeah.
sitting here for his own political survival, weakening president. Although this is really stupid politically, but he has it in his warped mind that maybe war will help him exert more emergency powers to maybe interfere with the midterm.
Yeah.
He has all this other stuff going on. So right now you see these two autocrats, wannabe autocrat in Trump's case, mostly in Netanyahu's already, trying to basically exploit this deaths of innocent lives to maintain their power.
Yeah, 100%. And the way that he sat there and took questions when he first took questions. So military action started. You've started the action using your executive powers. You haven't gone to Congress. You've taken disdain for democracy and all that. And you sat there, and it's an important moment. And you decide to start talking about the drapes in the ballroom that you're building behind you. Like if you said to the American people, maybe 10 years ago, let's go further back now that it's been that long with Trump, but let's say 15, 20 years ago, right? You told the American people, even at Watergate, right? Let's go all the way back to Watergate. And you said there will be a president, right? Who, I don't even need to recount them for our viewers, because we know as many crimes, we know as many moral failings, right? Who not only is undoubtedly the most corrupt and most morally heinous president there's ever been, but on top of that, he will invade and start bombing a country, killing civilians in the Middle East, right? Without going to Congress, he'll just decide to do it, and he'll just do it of his own accord. And then while he's being asked about it, he'll start talking about the ballroom that he is building on the White House. And in the same breath, he'll be telling people who can't afford a carton of eggs that their lives are better now when bombs are being dropped that are worth, $850,000 a pop being dropped every few minutes on civilians innocently, while he decides to decorate and build a ballroom with taxpayers' money and then tells them, oh no, you can't have free healthcare. That's not how it works here. I mean, that's like French Revolution
It's
territory. That's
insane.
let me cake. That's like if that was any other country in the world, I maintain it. I love Americans, but it's a young nation. If that was any other country in the world, that man would have been pulled from that building, and that's how they would have done it by now because it is staggering.
And it's mind blowing, staggering levels of corruption. Like you said, not only the spending taxpayer dollars on this ballroom, or I know he's gonna have, I guess investments or donors, or whatever, but basically building his personal projects, enriching himself by the billions in crypto. Meanwhile, now suing the federal government to basically pay himself billions of dollars, robbing,
Yeah,
stealing from American taxpayers directly. Meanwhile, now you're out here waging a war that Americans didn't want, betraying every single campaign promise you made one by one, bit by bit, betrayal after betrayal. And it's just the most stunning level of corruption imaginable. I mean, there's why historians before this, especially January 6th was a tipping point. Worst president of all time already walking into
yeah,
this administration. And now has just taken us to a new level of just desecration. And everyone who's backed this is, we're starting to see this wave of people on TikTok that are starting to, post their regrets of
yeah,
backing this regime, and which is good, you know.
yeah,
Good. I'm glad they're doing that. But like those who are still backing this, like especially average voters, you gain nothing from this. This guy's grifting and robbing the entire country while you are sitting there just, you're not a billionaire. He doesn't care about you.
no,
What are we doing here? And it's again, it's like I've been trying to flex as much empathy as I can for those who still back this regime, and it's very, very hard for me now when
yeah.
I'm watching like because what's coming down to me with this war, like the deaths, like the normalization of just death that has took place of just, especially during what was happening in Gaza was already, and then now we're actively participating. Like before, it was we were given the weapons, right? Now we're actively participating. Now that those deaths of those girls in Iran are that's us. That's it's not like there's no plausible deniability. There's no we gave the weapons. No, that was an operation of the U.S. Maybe it wasn't our missile strike. It was Israel's, but it was a joint. It was a joint affair that lost, like, even if a half of a life of a child's life, I couldn't sleep at night. I have no idea how any of these people are able to move through the world, especially Hegseth out there with a pep in his step, jumping around there like he's Willy Wonka, like excited
Yeah.
about these deaths. It's just morally depraved, and I just can't wrap my mind around any of this.
More generations of kids who are growing up now and who will one day be adults, who now associate the American flag and associate the American accent and associate anything to do with America with their friends dying, their family members dying, murder, callous murder, and that's all it is. And look, I'm not under the illusion that this is new for America. America's
Of
done that
course.
in the past. But the one thing I remember being at the MOD, so the Ministry of Defense in Britain, right, and speaking to someone there maybe 6 years ago, and they had said, "Look, if Trump gets back in, if we get back at that point, at least the one thing we are all reassured on, yes, it's horrendous for America. Yes, they'll have to weather the storm. Yes, we don't like his values, whatever they are, if he has any. But the one good thing and the one positive thing is that he doesn't want wars." And that he wants to do America first, and it's going to be insular, and it's not going to affect the rest of the
Nope.
world, and we'll all be safe and fine. And then Greenland, Venezuela, this action in the Middle East, Gaza, turning Gaza into, golf clubs, which is what they're going to do, and luxury real estate by the sea there. They're going to turn it into Dubai. That's what they're going to do. Jared Kushner being the one leading on that. I mean, again, family enrichment, oligarchy, corruption. Um, it's to think that that's where we are now, when the one supposed positive was that he wouldn't do this, and that it wouldn't be wars, and that they loved holding that against the Democrats. Obama did all these drone strikes, and Clinton did all this action in around the world and stuff, and that he wouldn't do that because there'd be no wars again. And he can't help himself. He cannot help himself because he has the power at his fingertips. He wants to see what it, and that's what the likes of Hegseth want as well. That's the kind of demonic look in their eyes, when you can see that fervor that they want to be able to exact their power on people that they view lesser than. 100 schoolgirls in Iran, what does that matter? Who are they? Nobody cares about.
They get to exert the power.
Donald Trump is important to Donald Trump. Those schoolgirls they don't matter. They're gone. They're dead. It's 100 lives. Just like that. And what I can't get now, I think Americans should be on the bloody street about this, is the fact that US personnel, I mean, I've never felt particularly emotional about, when it was Iraq or Afghanistan, it was of course it was sad, but I was like, why are you there? You shouldn't be there. It's horrendous that these lives have been lost, but it's the fault of the government. But actually last night, when they put up the photos of those reservists who were killed by accident in Kuwait, and they were just normal folk. They were just normal people. And you saw the photos of them and you thought, for God's sake, man. The sister of one of the guys who just about to turn 21, who couldn't drink in Kuwait, and he was going to come back on his leave to have his first drink with his sister, and he's dead now. And he's dead because Donald Trump decided that he should die. Because when you start a conflict like this, you don't control it. Things happen like that. Friendly fire incidents, mistaken identities, anything like that. Explosions by accident. These things happen.
Yeah.
And now what we've seen is, unfortunately, more death and destruction because of and we've touched on this before, the pathetic insecurities of that man.
No, exactly. And that's really what makes it so devastating. The personal whims, insecurities, broken nature of this one individual is leading to the deaths of thousands, hundreds. And these individual service members did not need to die. And I'm glad you bring up that service member story, about to turn 21, about to go home. Each person's death is a whole world exploded. It's that person's life, their connections, their relationships, their families, their hopes, their dreams, their plans. Each one matters. Every single person individually matters. And then they just become these statistics. And then if you don't know, and then that's the crisis of empathy we have here, where it's like, just because it's not happening to you, it's not real. If your brother died, I'm sure you'd be pissed right now about the war. Yeah. Someone else's brother is dying. Someone else's daughter has died. Or mother, daughter in that school. Imagine that community that just lost. Can you imagine? If imagine your community, your home, your school you send your kid to. Yeah. Either your kid or your friend, or that's thousands of people in the radar impacted. And I know, we're feeling the weight of it, and I know people in the chat, everyone's sad about this conversation, and the thing is, that means we're human. That's good, because we shouldn't lose sight or become desensitized to what's happening here, because this is just not okay. It wasn't okay in Gaza, the loss of life there. It wasn't okay in Iraq and Afghanistan when W. Bush led to hundreds of thousands. I had W. Bush ranked as a worse president than President Trump until COVID and January 6th. Yeah, because hundreds of thousands of people died because of him. Yeah, and just like
think about the rage after 9/11. So and I think this is important. We forget this in the West. I think a lot of the time it's very easy to, right? Because we turn on the TV and we see stuff, and we see an Arab woman crying with a dead baby in her arms, right? We're so desensitized to it that we think, I can't imagine what that would feel like. I'm not going to think about it, or I'm not going to put myself in that situation, right? It's what we do when we see other kind of suffering in daily life. We don't like to think about it if we're not going through it, because that would just make our day shit, right? So we don't think about it, we ignore it. But to think that, the rage of the American people, understandably, after 9/11 and the way that the world came together and said, this is despicable. And of course, that was used and weaponized by Dick Cheney and by W. Bush to, to get what they always wanted, which was oil reserves in Iraq, right? And that was horrendous. But there was still this like cry out for justice. There was like, something needs to be done. These people were killed innocently in their offices. Something needs to be done. What gets done about the people in Tehran right now who've just been killed? Do they get justice, or is it because they're not American they don't get justice? Like what? Like, are we starting to openly acknowledge this, combined with the racism, the xenophobia, the hatred of migrants? It just makes me think that we're now in a place where we openly acknowledge that people from other countries are less than, and their
Yes,
lives
that's
way
what's
less
happening.
than
That
these guys.
there are lives that are more important than others. This whole alleged pro-life Republican Party
Exactly.
is slaughtering people right now. And that's the thing. It's that's what really troubles me, is just like this. And I've had a lot of like conflicting feelings about the drone program under Obama.
Mm.
I really think that he got railroaded by the NatSec community, and I don't think a 60-year-old Obama would have made some of the same decisions, frankly. And because I don't know if it was. That's why I don't think I could ever be president. If even one person, innocent person, let alone a child,
Yeah,
died as a result of an order I gave, or even was tangentially involved in, I
couldn't
couldn't.
do.
I couldn't. The rest of my life, that one death would keep me up at night. I don't know how
Yeah.
Obama does it, frankly, but it would just, I couldn't. And now when I look at this, what's going on here, back then at least there was tactical stuff happening, and I know he's struggling with it, but now we have like blatant callous, open disregard for other lives, especially Middle Eastern lives. The
Yeah.
amount of death that has happened in the Middle East, and also yes, it is happening in Ukraine with Russia, but the world rallied around Ukraine for a little while.
Oh yeah, they're like,
But
we here
but
with the immigration
yeah,
here, the migrants. What we did is we had a government scheme. I couldn't believe it. So we had just spent the prior 5 years to the war in Ukraine saying that all the Syrian refugees who were crossing the English Channel in dinghies and coming from France, that they needed to go home or go somewhere else because we didn't want them here, because they were a cultural issue. And then the second that the Ukrainian war broke out, rightly so. Listen, Russia have invaded that country illegally. I want to support them. But there was a scheme set up by the government in Britain to bring a Ukrainian into your home. People started signing up for it, right? And people were saying, oh, we could, I could take two, I could take three. They can live with us for 6 years. And you would get money from the government to have these Ukrainians, right? That was the scheme we set up. And I could not for the life of me work out what the difference was between Ukrainian refugees and Syrian refugees. And then it clicked. It clicked. It's because they're white. They're white and they're European. And that was it. And people were able to be empathetic to them because of that.
and
But somebody who
this
lost everything in Syria, immeasurable suffering, no, sorry, not a chance. And that's why I maintain, if these people, these Christian nationalists, if Jesus Christ, if the Virgin Mary and Joseph the carpenter was looking for room in their inn, not a chance.
of course, of course, not only that, but if Jesus existed currently,
Yeah,
and he was a migrant that was protesting the government, he would have been persecuted in almost the exact same way,
crucified.
and
Exactly.
crucified in modern terms, whatever that would have looked like. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, on that note, like I think that's an uncomfortable truth for a lot of people. That
Yeah,
nuance of the way we treated Ukrainian refugees versus the way we treat Syrian, Middle Eastern refugees, the refugee crisis. Like when we had a refugee crisis over our actions and European actions
yeah,
in
yeah.
Iran, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, and Syria. When
Mhm.
that refugee crisis hit our shores, it made the countries lose their minds to the point that they elected far-right lunatics. Like that's what happened. Rather than rally around these people that we displaced, we lost our minds, frankly. Like we were like, okay, oh no, Brexit. Oh, all these, where did these brown people come from?
Yeah,
Who
shut the
knows
door.
who
Yeah,
knows where these brown people came from? I wonder what caused the displacement of these random people who I
yeah,
this who boo-hoo to those people, but it's not our problem. Where do these people come from? Let's Brexit. Let's elect psychopath Donald Trump. Let's have a far-right surge in Europe and a resurgence of the rhetoric from the 1930s over
yeah.
what we did to displace people in
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
Middle East.
our
And it's like,
action.
our action, and it's like the brain rot that's happened in this
Yeah,
generation, frankly, just got to be very,
totally. And those
very.
young people now. I did a debate the other day. It was one of these YouTube shows, these right wing YouTube shows, right? Should have known better, right? I took the money, I went on, and I did this debate with this. She has 816,000 followers, right? I've got 33,000, right? But I'm on TV and I'm on mainstream TV. She's a YouTuber and she's a TikToker, and that's what she does, right? And I thought maybe she'll be informed, whatever. I'm told that she's anti-immigration. We'll have the debate, so we do it. And she is a young black woman from London. Her dad was from Nigeria and moved to London in the 1980s and 1990s, right? And she's now making a living because you can imagine how the far right, she's a gift to them, right? She's a young black woman. She's saying England should be white and Christian and nothing but that. And I just sat, I'm trying to, you know what it's like. I'm trying to debate these people, and I'm like, I can't find the grip of reality to start from to try and counter this because it's so mad, because it's so insane. But they've
Yeah.
got her thinking that and she's very open about it. She's like, oh, if I was told to go, I would, because I'm not from here. I don't belong here. I'm black. And like, everything about her is British. And I just cannot understand why it's been that
Self-hatred.
we've got to that point, you know?
And honestly, like, on that point of like trying to debate these people, I'm you guys and Bobby haven't seen me on, CNN as much lately. I've been taking care of my mental health first. So because the stuff like this, okay. You have these, sounds like Candace Owens, someone said, internalized racism. First off, the chat is popping. Y'all are great. Keep it up. Keep it up. Smash the like button. You're gonna make this go on longer than maybe we had planned, because y'all are in here going off. Thank you. Keep it up. We're gonna keep engaging with you. You're spitting fire. We're reading what you're saying.
Great stuff
Keep
from Maura.
keep at it. And so what like these debates that I go on, and it's insane. And then when you encounter, what's the saddest for me is when I encounter a black conservative,
Mhm.
because I know how it starts. I was talking about this in the previous live. I started getting randomly a lot of right-wing sponsored content requests, right-wing products, flooding my inbox. I don't have anything from liberal or like, I have Ground News. Ground News is a great partner of mine. We do a joint content thing.
Yeah.
But that's it. If I accepted this right-wing, I would be balling right now. But you know what? But that's the thing. That's how they pull you in.
Yeah.
The money is in right-wing creatives. What that person you went on there with has no moral compass, doesn't believe a word she's saying. She's raking in these dollars because I'm telling you, you guys, like, I've been trying to talk about this on this. It's why I keep beating the drum of independent media and grassroots support for independent journalism. Like the rich, the people who are millionaires already, they're going to be fine. Support independent media financially if you can. And, instead of funneling all your money to political candidates in the US, and then it gets eviscerated and burned right after election day, because there are people who are trying to poach us. If I said James tomorrow, I was like, you know what? Donald has a point.
Yeah.
Donald has a point. Donald has a point. You know what? Fuck migrants. Like if I did that tomorrow, I would just start rolling in cash. I'm not joking, because I'm literally getting requested. Even with my current content output, that's very pro-democracy, pro-human rights, I still get solicitations for right-wing sponsored content. So, like, I just wanted to put the monetization behind what you faced on that show. There was nothing you could have said in that debate that would have changed her mind, because she is there to prop up a financially incentivized right-wing institution that is funding these people, that is picking off, trying to give cover for black people, to back these right-wing grifters. I'm telling you, people are saying wow in the comments. I'm not lying. I have screenshots. Like, I'm getting poached to become, like, they're coming. Like, why do you think some people turn? Lindy Lee, some of these grifters immediately start, like, they make it.
The money's so good. That's the thing people don't realize.
And you have to have principles. And before I just finish off this point, because I don't want to continue into another, I want to get back to our topic, but like, I have to, with my principles, luckily I came in here for the right reasons. I'm not here for the money. If I was here for the money, I would have left a long time ago. It doesn't pay well. I build apps. That's where a lot of the other money comes from. But like, when it comes to independent media, you got to back the people that you see out here, because
Yeah.
these people have moral compasses. The people you see that grift, that turn on a dime, the Lindy Lees, the other left wing grifters here in the U.S., they turn on a dime because the money is on the right. Charlie Kirk tried to fly me out to Arizona in 2022. I said no.
Jesus, man,
All
really?
right. Yes, I'm telling you guys, this shit is real. Okay, like you
Crazy.
have to like this when you see a black conservative, there's a dollar on the other side of that exchange, and that is my. I usually don't get really insider and talk about what's going on, but that just you bringing
It's
it up.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I'm just
You
telling you,
stand
man.
steadfast. You stand steadfast is, that inspires me because I was offered a job a week ago. I'll be candid with this chat. I was offered a job a week ago, and it was a job where I had to, because I'm self-employed and I do my media self-employed stuff, and I've got the contracts with the networks that I'm proud to have. It's great, but times can be tough and things can dry up. And I'm thinking about the future, and I'm trying to work out what to do and all the rest of it. And I lost my mum, who was my single parent. I lost her in 2020 during the pandemic. And I'm trying to think, what would she want me to do, right? What would be the sensible thing here financially? And this job was so delicate about how it would do it. It'd be lobbying for space stuff in Scotland, right? The space sector, right? But what does the space sector connect to? Aerospace, right? And aerospace is defense and weapons.
Mhm.
So I looked into it, and they had approached me specifically because of my media work and the things I've been saying publicly, right? And I said to them, I say, what do you want me for? They're representing 3 defense companies who manufacture weapons for Israel, right? And I wouldn't even share a platform with those people, let alone work for them. So I had to say to them, why do you want me? And they said, well, we think you're the perfect person for this, And it wasn't until I said to a mate who I confided in and said, am I mad? Like, why would they want me? And he said that this is selling out. They're trying to buy you. They're trying to
Yes,
buy your
yes,
silence. And
man.
the money was good enough to make me, who, I mean, I've walked out of numerous jobs because I didn't like someone, or I wouldn't like their values or whatever, and disagree with them. It was enough to make me have to stop and think, are you mad for turning this down? Am I insane for saying no to this money? And I haven't, I said no about 4 days ago, and I've slept soundly, other than last night. I've slept
Ah,
soundly every night
congrats,
since.
congrats.
But let me tell you, it's not easy, man. Yeah, and I can't even imagine as somebody of color when it's the institution, it's the same institution reborn that managed slavery. It's exactly the same institutions. And now instead it's, we know what you need, and it's money. And it's money that will tie you up.
No, exactly. And first off, sorry for your loss, my brother, and
Oh, thanks, man.
like and you're living up to what she would want. That's how you honor her, right? Like
Yeah.
being a good person and retaining your principles, and again, this is why, maybe we don't even get back to, we've already covered a lot of Iran. We could talk about this for a little while, because this is
We'll
how me
get
and
into
James
it,
just
man.
catch up too. But like people are saying, yeah, they're proud of us for standing up to our morals. Yeah, and if you are, hit the subscribe button. All right, if you like what hit the subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to James already, it's right there. And then if you can, become a paid subscriber, because in order for people to maintain, you want more people to hold the line against this nonsense, you have to back independent media. And we've been thinking about creative solutions on that front. But yeah, I mean, you're right. That's how it happens. Is that people
Yeah.
get bought? Is that then maybe that's why I was approached by those right wing products too, where it's like, I was like, oh, have you seen my content? Like, I'm literally working against everything you stand for.
Yeah.
But as I didn't respond to them, but it's like, you're right, James, that's what it is. It's like, oh, they want to take you off the board.
Yeah.
They're like, oh,
Yeah.
let's buy you and take you off the board, because in order for me to promote right wing product, I have to start creating right wing
Yeah.
content. So it's like that's where the money is on the right. These billionaires, they back these independent groups, and then in your case with with lobbying for that firm that contrasted with your values. That's how it's step by step. That's the beginning of the path that
Yeah.
leads to becoming Donald Trump.
Oh,
Frankly, that's the beginning of the path that leads to becoming the grifters we see in power right now. You start to compromise bits of yourself. You look at a younger Trump. You look at these younger people. Not that they had much, to begin with, but
yeah.
beginning there's some kind of conflict, and then
Yeah.
you bit by bit accept, oh, I'll take the money for this contract, it's whatever. I'll take the money for the next contract. Maybe, I'll accept, oh, I really need the cash right now. Let me just do this one right wing product. And it's like, oh wait, the money was so good. Let me do another right wing product. Oh, let
Yeah.
me then you start twisting yourself, and that's what you see on the panel at CNN with
Yeah.
some of these people that go on there. I love Abby Phillips' show. She's great personally. Some of the people that go on there, I think a lot of them, have conflicting reasons for why they do what they do, and some of the people on these other shows. And I really think like there has to be more. That's why you and I clicked, and why we're
Yeah.
doing this show weekly, because we immediately like, oh, that's a guy with principles. That's a guy who says
Yeah.
what he
And
believes.
we both knew. I mean, coming from, without getting too personal, if you don't want to, but like we come from it's mad to say, when you're from, as a person of color in the US, I'm a white guy from the northeast of England, but we identified in our background something very similar. We haven't been given things on a silver plate. We've
Yeah.
had to genuinely fight for it. And I think in that fight and in that struggle, sometimes they can wrap you up and that ambition can be turned against you. And it can
Yes.
say, oh, well, but, and that's how you end up like Donald Trump, where you take and take and take because you feel like you're entitled to it. But it takes strength of character to be able to fight and do this the right way, to be able to say, we're taking on the fight. Yes, I'm ambitious. I want a nice life for myself, a nice life for my family. I've got a career. I recognize that. But I'm not compromising what's in my heart to do it,
Yes.
because then none of it would be worthwhile. What, are you going to sit in an empty, cold mansion, with no one around you because you're an arsehole and
You
nobody
lose
likes
you lose everything.
you?
And Tracy saying, first of all, you guys in the comments, thank you so much for loving what we're saying. Tracy said you guys should do this more often. Love the conversation. Good news for you, we do this weekly. And by the end of each
Exactly. Yeah,
conversation, me
yeah.
and James end up we'll talk
And
about
we've got
some
a
global
logo.
affair, and
We've
we
got
got a
a logo.
logo. And
Yeah.
and we end up having some heart to heart by the end of it, because like we're both people of principle. And I think that's a defining struggle of every person, where it's like, especially people who are trying to achieve something, where it's like you have to just, whether it's the character defining decisions you make every day that makes you who you are, and you have to continuously stay in that. Especially you and I, we're both in similar kind of places. We're both on mainstream media all the time. We're both, doing some maybe side, using our other talents to get some
But it never
side
feels like
money in.
enough.
And it never
Never
feels like, yeah,
feels.
because we're not like, we're not each
Yeah.
anchors on our own show. Like we're both in this kind of, and then there's this midpoint you get to where we're both very hungry young people. We want to change the world for the good. We want to do all this stuff. But then sometimes, like you said, that ambition can maybe outpace the character.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge of people, especially who are aspiring, is how do you make the character and the ambition? Character is always a little bit more than it. The character is always a little bit more than the ambition, so that you can check yourself and say, is this a character affirming decision? The money's not worth it, because I won't be able to sleep. And like I think about this, I'm building a family now. I have a wife, and I think about my future kids, and it's like, what would I want them to see in me? And it's like that's what it's all about. Character should always check ambition. Our favorite leaders in history, from Lincoln to I start to include Obama in that, just because I'm a personal fan of his. But it's like where you see people have to weigh that decision every day, and that's what we're missing from our leadership right now, is people who have character and put it above their
Yes.
own ambition at times, and then make those tough decisions, not just for themselves but for the country. And we need more of that in media. We need more of that in business world, especially in the business world right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, Maureen said you check yourself by having conversations like this. Yes, I'm glad we had brought that up, because it's one of those things where, you know, I'm gonna start texting you about these kind of things, and bouncing some of these decisions, because it's like I know you're out there grappling with the same stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's exactly the same. And I come from a working class family in the northeast of England, a kind of Catholic background. My grandma and my granddad were the perfect example of two very different figures. That kind of generation where they probably shouldn't have been married. Like they probably wouldn't have
Yeah,
had
yeah.
been married if there was choice involved. But my grandma was constantly wanting to put a picture of the Queen up on the wall and a picture of Jesus. Right, the two people in her life. Like she's a monarchist, and she liked religion. She was a Catholic. I think she fancied the local priest as well, which kind of helped. But my granddad was basically a communist. He was a revolutionary communist,
Mm.
trade unionist, and anti-monarchy. So and anti-religion as well. He was an atheist. So he wanted to constantly take these
Oh,
pictures down
yeah.
the wall, right? And I saw in them the two different sides of how working class people struggled, right? My grandma's philosophy was very much, and I have sympathy for this. It's why I can understand conservatives a lot of the time, because she would say things like, you're too poor for principles. You can't afford values. You're working class. You get on with your lot. You try and make what you can. You can't afford principles. They're a luxury. My granddad, he would have given away his last penny and he would have traded it all in to stand on his values, right? And I know it's not easy to struggle, even if it's, for one person, it's 1 month's rent, right? And if whatever they dangle in front of you, whatever the carrot is. And for me, this job that was offered, they'd spent half an hour casually chatting to me, the people who I'd been networking with anyway. And we'd been talking about cars, because I'd just hired a car at the weekend, drive down to see some friends. And they were talking about cars. And I'm like, what kind of cars do you like? And what kind of didn't click for me afterwards until the offer came with a Mercedes. And it didn't click for me that I was like, you were scoping me out. You wanted to know what I want, what's driving me. But I tell you what drives me more than the Mercedes, because I would love a Mercedes, Ahmed. I would love a Mercedes. I would love, holidays. I've not been on holiday in 10 years. I'd love a holiday
Oh, you gotta
somewhere.
take a
The
holiday.
Caribbean, all of that. I want that. Of course I do. But I would not be able to enjoy a single bit of it. It would all turn to ashes in my mouth if I thought that I had done that by giving up who I am. And you're exactly the same in that. I can see it.
Yeah, man, we're totally the same. And if you look at, the politicians that have done that, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, these
Yeah.
individuals where they once, maybe they did. I mean, Rubio maybe did have those principles. Lindsey Graham, I think, was always a cloud chaser. But then you watch him chip away. You can see the misery on Rubio's face as he's
Oh,
grappling
yeah.
with how he's selling himself out because he thinks he's going to be president in 2028. But it's just like, it's not worth it. It's
No.
not worth your soul, and it's just not worth it. And I promise you, like, these people who are thinking about legacy and, oh, you have to sell every bit of yourself to achieve more power and wealth. Like, what matters is how your kids remember you, how your friends remember you made them feel, how the people in your life saw that you made the right decisions under pressure. Like, that is your legacy, and what I think you and I are a test of is whether or not you can be great and have character at the same time. And I think certain people have achieved that in
Yeah.
their past. And I mean, look at Alyssa Liu. We talk about Alyssa Liu,
I love that.
who's just gracefully just like achieving greatness with a smile on her face and not betraying her own personal foundation or choices. And it's like, on this level, it's like, I want to be able to see that people can achieve great things, people can make an impact on the world, people can be great people, but maintain their integrity. You don't have to be an asshole and a genius at the same time. There's too many people who think you have to have a trade-off. No, you do not. Walter Isaacson writes these biographies about all these greats that happen to be, genius and also kind of dicks at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Other than maybe Benjamin Franklin, who was kind of great on almost all
Yeah.
math. But like, you got Jobs, who I am a fan of, but Musk, who's way worse. I think if Jobs were alive today, he would have been doing what Anthropic is doing at Apple. By the way, he
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing with Tim Cook. But my point overall, not trying to digress too much from it, was just that we need to prove that you can be a good person and high achieving at the same time. You can reach all your goals. You don't have to sell your soul to become
Yeah.
wealthy or to attain power. You can move with integrity and be rewarded for it, financially, with the people around you, with love, fulfillment, with life. Like, that is the secret to life. And if you can walk that balance, it might be a longer path. I'm sure you and I could have been worth 10 mil by now if we'd sold our
Yeah.
principles out from the
Totally.
beginning. I had so many across my 10-year journalism journey, especially when I was in a startup, the amount of, different money I could have taken from different interests. It's
Heck
like,
as well.
it's going to be a longer process potentially, but the end goal will be so much more rewarding if you
Yeah.
just stick to your guns.
And Alyssa Liu, like, I'm so pleased you bring her up again because, I've been watching a few videos this week. I'm sure viewers have also seen some of the videos I'm talking about, but like, she's a prime example, right, of somebody who, because you don't teach that. She's just inherently doing it her way, right? And normally these people are crushed by pressure, especially these young
Yes.
people, right? But I heard her say, like, the worst that would happen is that I would mess up a routine. And I'm okay with that. She said, I'm okay with that. And I thought, it is, they don't tell you this. You think you've got to do it their way. You think you have to do it the way everyone's set out there, right? Like I thought myself, I can't do TV and radio, right, because of X, Y, or Z. I haven't been to university. I don't have a degree. I'm
Yeah.
not from background, right? It doesn't matter. None of it matters. You can do it the way you want. And Alyssa Lou the other day, she's got a formal jacket on, and then she's got like 3/4 length, like skate shorts on, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
just
No,
chilling on a sofa, being
just
interviewed. Amazing,
no, she's
amazing.
incredible. And on that note, by the way, how much time do you have left? I don't know if I want to keep you.
I'm
You
good.
got a little bit
I'm
more
good for
time?
time.
Okay,
Yeah,
great,
yeah,
great. We can talk a little bit longer because we're really cooking here. And also, everybody in the conversations, love you guys chiming in. Keep smashing the like button.
yeah.
And if you have
I'm gonna
not
have a
yet,
look through and see if we've
yeah,
got any questions we can
yeah.
take. While
Yeah, keep looking through while I mean, most people are just commenting about they're loving the conversation, which is great.
yeah, give us some
Yeah,
questions. Throw some questions
yeah,
in
throw
if
some
anyone has
questions if
them
you have
about.
any questions for us.
Yeah,
Also, subscribe if you have not to both me and James Matthewson. And after this, become a paid subscriber if you can. That'd be wonderful. And also, some of you I see in here who are my paid subscribers, thank you so much. They've been getting a lot more, especially doing these lives, and really, you're really making this work sustainable. So thank you so much.
yeah,
And yes, on that note with Alyssa Lou, like there's that also. I've been dealing with that a lot personally. I'll get even more personal. Like
yeah,
I have a therapist too. I've been working through like a lot of stuff in my own life, and like one of the things I've been working through in therapy is like the pressure I put on myself to
yeah,
like achieve and like do these things. And like the lead up to my MLK speech, the amount of like perfectionism I was putting in this thing, the amount of
yeah,
times I practiced the incisiveness of the tiny details, and then it went great. But then even after it was pretty much as best as great, the best outcome I could have, I was still finding ways to be like, you could, improve here, and just like the nitpicking everything and then trying to just refine and refine and refine. And then I see Alyssa Lou go out there on the skating rink and then just joyfully just glide around, happy as
yeah,
can be. And you're right, doing it her way, because when we get told that, especially this is like a male defined route to
yeah.
success, where they say you have to be punishing on yourself, you have to struggle,
Be
you have
miserable.
to you have to be
Yep.
miserable, right? And it's like
Yeah,
that was eye opening for me in Alyssa Lou's front, and it's like you don't have to be miserable to succeed. And then now there's the flip side of that. You don't have to be a dick to be a great manager or to get results, or to like. I think we need more people, like you and I, and to debunk this on the male side, where it's like this male dominated idea that greatness has to be through misery and
yeah,
self-sacrifice. No, you don't have to sacrifice yourself. Be joyful. And that self-sacrifice, as we see with the stoicism, and like um like Ryan Holiday's great on his stoicism side, but we see some right wing people try to grift for the manosphere, where there's like this
we started,
self-help,
but
there's a
yeah,
self-help thing where you have to self-sacrifice and also sacrifice parts of who you are to get to where you need to be, including your
even
decency.
yeah, even down to like all the relationship grifty stuff. I know we talked about a bit last week as well, but when they're saying like, oh, to young men, this is how you get a woman, right? And all of it is based. It's fascinating. Think about it. All of it is based on pretense, right? It's based on like, pretend to be this thing, be performative in this aspect, and you will trick this woman into
Yes, yes,
choosing you. And then once you've got her, what then? You've got her. She's trapped.
yeah,
Doesn't work like that anymore, bro. Like you got like, have you heard of
yeah,
divorce? Very common, Like they can just leave you. Like rather than trying to be a better person, I will never understand the lengths that some of these men go to make themselves suffer. And the funny thing, I come across it all the time when people say, and being a bigger dude, being fat, it's quite funny because it really doesn't gel with that way of thinking, because they to themselves will say, well, you can't, you can't have women, you can't, do well dating and be successful because I've been told that I have to be ripped and I have to be stoic. And here's me out here being a complete emotional Pisces moron, heart on my sleeve, doing what I want, saying what I, and like, it boils down to it. And a guy asked me once, I think it was last year, he said something like, well, how come you're having success dating and stuff and I'm not? Like I'm God's gift,
weird question.
I've 6 pack and I've worked really hard on myself. And I was like, you haven't worked on yourself, dude. You haven't worked on yourself. It's in here. And you
Yeah,
need to get happy with yourself. And men, the real problem, the same male loneliness epidemic, it's about loneliness, but not in the way that they think. It's that they can't sit with themselves. And you said it
Yes.
about Donald Trump last week. He can't sit still,
He
right?
can't
And they
sit
can't
still.
sit still and not
They
at peace with themselves.
Exactly. That's why, like, yeah, in my earlier 20s, I read a lot of Eastern spirituality, and it's always about finding stillness, meditation. If you can't sit in the stillness with yourself, the stillness will tell you the truth. If you can't if you sit in the stillness, you're feeling you got
Yeah,
stuff you got to work through. If you can sit
yeah,
in the stillness and be still and present, you've achieved Zen. You know what I'm saying? And that's
face
what we
the
saw.
problem.
That's what we
Yeah,
see. Oh, Ginger says, "How do I become a paid subscriber?" Before I even get to your point, thank you for that question, Ginger. Great question. So you hit the subscribe button at the top for either me and James or both, and then you're gonna get an email, especially if you do it here in the app. You'll get an email saying like, well, choose your subscription choice. I think if you do it through mobile, and you can also just visit our after this, or you can visit our Substack websites, and then you can see the subscribe button right on our profile pages as well, and then you'll be able to upgrade to a paid subscription there. So thank you so much.
yeah.
That would be great. We really appreciate that. And yes, on that point of on the male loneliness epidemic. And first off, congrats on having dating success. I knew you would, man. You're great. So
I'm not.
they're
I'm not
they're
not right
lucky.
now, to be clear, but I'm not
No,
dating right now. But
but
it's more
but
that
like,
kind of like the kind of idea that like you can't. Hang on, you're not
but you're
real
able to.
players.
It's about because it's about like, I'll tell you what, like I was telling you last time, like, um especially with it's the right person, if nothing, you can do no wrong. You know how many goofy things I did in the early stages of, dating my wife, that if
Yeah,
she excused because I was just the right person. Like
yeah.
I drank a hot green tea on the first date in the middle of summer because I don't drink alcohol. I quit in 2022.
Yeah.
So like
Oh,
and then so
all right.
yeah,
I've been
yeah, yeah.
for 5 years. Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah.
that. Yeah, so I drink a hot green tea, and it's like, do that at a cocktail bar, or whatever. That's some weird behavior. But
It's
like
different
basically,
though. It's different,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. But
Like,
like, it works, and it's like, especially as I've been with my wife longer. Like, I'm just a goofy motherfucker. Like, on here, I'm serious. Like, I don't really show my humor as much as I could. But I'm telling you, I am just primarily a goofball when it comes to me and my wife, my household. Like, I'm not some stoic, like, stern, person that these manosphere people say you need to be. Be
yeah,
yourself. Like, there's so much pressure put on boys and young boys to, and it's like, just be yourself, enjoy yourself, Alyssa Lou your way through life, and I promise you're gonna succeed.
yeah. I was blessed with a mother, as a single parent, and this is why I despise this idea they all have of like, Elon Musk talks about the nuclear family when he's the biggest deadbeat dad you've ever seen, to like 10 kids.
Yeah.
He's not around any of them. But like, my mum made the decision to raise me on her own, and I had two older sisters as well who were like 19 and 20 when I was born. My mum was 40 when she had me, and she was told at the time, you shouldn't, this is dangerous, 1994. But I'm so blessed every day because even though my mum's gone now, and I had 26 years with her, and of course it breaks my heart every day. I would love to see it, but I'm so lucky, mate, to have had a mother who taught me and just showed me from the start that yes, of course you're going to get hurt at times. Yes, the world is a cold and callous place at times, but if you approach everything with love and understanding and patience and tolerance, then you can do no wrong. You keep your side of the street clean and everything else gets sorted. And I feel happy and content in myself, no matter where I am, no matter how much money's in the bank, all of that stuff. Of course, that affects me, but the primary thing is that I know I'm living by the way that I want to live. And if that's like oversharing or kind of coming on too strong or being an emotional person, being an emotional man, and I don't view that as any less masculine than anything
No.
else. When I look at Andrew Tate and I see an angry, miserable, such a
Oh, he's
miserable
miserable, man.
man
Loser.
torturing himself, and that's weakness. Real
Oh
strength
yeah.
is saying, you know what it is? Actually, I don't care what you think, and I'm going to continue being what I am. That's real strength. We need to teach that to the kids.
Yes, exactly. That's real strength. And also I could tell, I knew you were raised right, and raised by a strong woman, because I think there's something about, like, I my household, my mom, I had my mom who's, incredible, she's very strong. She was kind of the matriarch of our house. And
Yeah,
then I have two sisters. So I was raised around mostly women, my dad as well, but we were the
yeah,
minority. And it's like you get to new respect for women, you understand them more when you're raised around
yeah,
most of them. And then you're able to just kind of have respect for them,
Yeah.
which goes well in dating and not being a
It's
total
funny
dick
that
like
because
Andrew Tate, right?
yeah, you probably get the same thing, but like, yeah, I've always been more comfortable around women than I have men, and I've got lots of women who are friends as a result, right? Now, when you have women who are friends, that's a game changer because you you actually are viewing these people as human beings, which is a
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
right because you don't want anything from that other than a friendship. Whereas there's this suspicion on the manosphere of like, oh, men and women can't be friends, they can't mix. It has to just be that relationship. You got to be like Nick Fuentes, who I don't want to bully the lad, but like, you know, he's openly talked about being a virgin and like he can't go near women, and he's so it's the repression that is put on the self, and
Yes.
and that's the thing that angers me more than anything because look, we are born with immense privilege, being born where we're born. We're not born in third world countries where there's immense suffering every day. You know, we already have privilege no matter what level of the social hierarchy we're in. So I consider that, and I have blessings and gratitude for it every day. But I'm not going to waste this by choosing misery because that would be a complete affront to everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, exactly, man. And that's just all really well said. And we've covered so much in this. We've talked about for those who are tuning in later, we talked about Iran at the beginning of this. So when
We
we
did
dropped,
talk
well,
about
we did talk
Iran.
about
Yeah.
Iran for like a good 45 minutes. So when we drop this recording,
Yeah.
if you want to hear about Iran, you will hear about Iran. But here at the end, I think this is all tied together because it's important. Like we talked about the character affirming choices, the not selling out, and the being a I think one of the systemic problems we see is especially Trump as the prime representative of the opposite
Yeah.
style of masculinity that we're talking about here is that when you teach young men to be what Donald Trump is, which is what Andrew Tate, the manosphere, these people who are trying to drive men towards chaos and anger and hatred of women, you end up becoming rather than working on the self and focusing on going inward and the stillness and finding inner peace before you go out in the world and do things, you end up creating these monsters that
Yeah,
are
of
running
course.
our country, our world through to death and destruction. The Netanyahus, the Donald Trumps, the Vladimir Putins, the
Yeah.
people who cannot sit fucking still
No. And
for 10
they
seconds
really,
to just enjoy. And like if you were like Trump should have walked into 2025 feeling vindicated. He should have walked into 2025 feeling calm and happy and vindicated. He won after January 6th. He got everything he wanted. He got his revenge. And instead, he went ahead and decided to be his worst self possible. It was a decision. And it was at this point, it was impossible for him to do anything other than that because
yeah,
of like what we talked about throughout this conversation. Every character affirming decision along the way throughout his life, he chose the self-serving piece of shit decision,
100%.
and I don't know if I just called him that. I'm not going to be allowed on cable anymore, but whatever.
Listen,
He chose the worst decision
true.
possible each chance.
Yeah,
And then now he can't change course. So he
no.
walked in there and because he couldn't sit still, because he couldn't be the right, because he didn't find that inner peace that we're talking about here, that young men should achieve, you get this. So I do think that there's a cultural shift. And maybe we'll do a standalone episode on just how to be a good man, a good person.
I would
But
love that, man. I would love to talk about masculinity more because it is that thing of, especially as so much of it, the irony, so much of masculinity centers around women and what they want from women and what the relationship with women is. And it's the irony of it, is that women are, and I don't say this to sound, like a pick me or whatever, but women genuinely are the center of everything. And that's the thing, whether these guys want to admit it or not, all of their worldviews, all of their hatred and everything is centered around women. And it's because they know that women are the thing. And even if they view women as a resource because of creating life, all this birth rate stuff it sounds like something from Gilead at the moment. Some of them are
Genghis
sounding.
Khan,
They're all talking about like, oh, we need to up the birth rates and women aren't having kids anymore. Listen, if every woman tomorrow in the world made the decision that they didn't want to have kids anymore, then we would just die out as a species, and I'm fine with that. That's what has to happen. Okay? Like, because that's choice, right? That'll never happen because, of course, there will always be people who want to. But the idea that you have some kind of say or control over it, it all comes back to that insecurity. And it once you realize it, I don't think they know that so many people could see straight through them. And they
yes,
fear women more than they fear other men because they know that women are emotionally literate. Women can read that and women
exactly,
see it and they see the weakness and they think
exactly.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous is what. to.
Precisely. And I know it's gonna sound like a random segue, but it's actually tied into all of this. Someone asked what we think about the vote, the votes and the vote in Texas, the primary.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna touch on the politics of it because let's open up a whole other conversation. But one of the styles of leadership, the reason why I like Tallarico, I think they're both great, but the reason why I like in particular Tallarico's style of leadership is because that is positive masculinity. Like what we need more of is models of men and individuals out here who are succeeding, who are able to say like, no, we're healing. We're no, no, no. We're moving to an era of healing because what we really need is a mass cultural realignment. We need a consciousness shift, a spiritual reawakening, not a religious one, but a spiritual one, where we're thinking, looking inward again, where we're letting ourselves sit in the stillness, where we're focused on the present, not this vitriolic, just like hit, 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 hate, 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 attack, 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 like Trump has exacerbated in us, which was in the works well before him. Newt Gingrich in the '90s, Nixon Southern Strategy beforehand. Like we, the all of this, our own American history, racial history. So
yeah.
what I think we just need to. I hope we can create more of what you and I we all have to model in ourselves, and everyone watching, you have to model in your own lives. Is just treating people with respect, healing, decency, a resurgence of that. That's what we need in America and in the world right now.
The difficult choice, man. The difficult choice. And you don't take the easy path. It's easy. It's easy to hate. It's really easy to do all those things. It's easy to blame women. It's easy to blame minorities. It's easy to blame everybody but yourself. It's about, it's all funny about how conservatives talk about personal responsibility and yet never take any, and it's even down to people standing outside abortion clinics and you ask them, would you adopt? No. All of that. It all comes down to everything but me, everything external. It's all
Yes.
out there. That's the problem, and they're angry about it. And I'm going to share something quite disturbing just quickly before we wrap up on the Alyssa Lou front, because we're all inspired by her. We love it. And then I saw a friend of mine shared something that was from a MAGA account on X somewhere, I think. And they had said, that she or something, that she wouldn't have her hair that color if she had a good conservative man to treat her right. And then some real things I can't say about,
Oh,
sex and saying that she needs a good MAGA something.
oh, it's disgusting.
And all this. It's a 20-year-old woman, right? And they were saying that, she needs a man to put her into line and put her into shape and all that. And to think that you're like a 56-year-old man called Derek, right? And you're sat at home and you turn the TV on and this young woman expressing joy and doing something that she was born to do without pressure and without, any kind of force or anything like that behind it, just pure joy and love in her heart. And she's happy doing it and she's succeeded and done it for your country as well. And then your response to that is immediately anger and to sexualize her and threaten her. That's all you. That's all to do with you and the hatred in your heart because you are miserable that you cannot be that. Because you didn't do the Alyssa Lou route. You took the
Exactly.
other route.
You took the other
And you made,
choice. And
yeah,
people who go the Alyssa Lou route, people who go the peaceful route, trigger
yeah,
the people who
100%. Yeah,
that's, for example, why do you think we're still living in post-Obama backlash? When you
yeah,
have someone
yeah,
who's at peace with themselves, who's confident, who's
yeah.
positively masculine or positively
Still
feminine,
triggers them.
it triggers their existence. They can't handle the fact that look at that person that shouldn't be at peace. Why are they at peace? I'm so miserable. Why is he at peace?
Yeah,
Trump?
yeah.
You think Trump got roasted by Obama at that White House Correspondents' Dinner
Never
by a
listened to them.
peaceful zened out monk Obama roasting him? He could not handle it, and we're still dealing with it. So, like, yeah, man, it's this misery versus peace that we're dealing with, and I think I think that's really our choice right now. Our political choice, our moral choice, our spiritual choice is: are we going to continue to choose peace or actively choose misery, which is what the Republican and the far right is representing right now? And I think
100%.
that's a choice that's internal and external at the ballot box.
Totally. Joy. Joy. And let
Joy.
me tell you, mate, that's what I get every week having these chats with you is joy.
Yes. Same,
Everyone in the
man.
chat, everyone in the chat
Just
contributes to that.
thank you so much for being here, everybody. Like, again, every time we have these conversations, the reason we do this weekly, we do it every Wednesday. Come back next time because we start with some, we get wonky. We'll talk about the political dynamics, but then we always end with the humanity. We end with the bigger picture dynamics behind
Yeah.
everything. Love engaging with you guys. You guys fill us up. You really you fill us with joy and make us feel this work is worthwhile. Keep smashing
Yeah.
that like button on your way out because it'll help. I'm gonna do a write up of this afterwards, post the full recording so you can watch it and share it afterwards. And also, if you can and if you'd like to, subscribe to me and James up top with the subscribe button. If you're already a subscriber, which most of you are, can see a lot of familiar faces. Consider becoming a paid subscriber to me and to James. We have doing independent journalism, or as much as you can. Just we're out here trying to do the real work, and we appreciate every single one of you. James, any final words or thoughts before we sign off?
Just grateful, gratitude for you, mate. Gratitude for our friendship. Would love to. We'll talk on the masculinity stuff because I know we've got so much to say on that as well. But you keep uplifting me. You know, I'm pleased I can do the same for you. And the chat, everyone in the chat, thank you for the support. I've seen so many subscribers come through to my
Oh, that's
Substack.
great.
Well, Substack was such a new venture. When we first talked, I didn't have one, did I? I didn't even have one. You know, so you've been able to bring me through that process, and I use Instagram a lot so people can jump on there if they're on and follow me. But yeah, this is a highlight of my week, mate, and I love it. So
So I'll see you next week. We do this every week, and also one of the weeks when we do when it's a really like lull of a news week, we'll do like a standalone masculinity
when the
episode
world's not
when the
on
world's
fire.
not burning. When the world's
Yeah,
not burning. But I think
maybe
oddly
oh
the
yeah,
masculinity aspect actually ties to all this because that's why these men are raging and killing people
this is
for
it.
no
It's the
reason.
undercurrent, isn't it? You know, it's at the heart of all of it. So I think we
Exactly.
get away talking about it any
All
time. But
right.
yeah,
No, I'm excited to write it up after because I think I'm going to be able to tie all these threads together. We covered a
amazing.
lot.
And
So
don't be pushing yourself. Don't be harsh on yourself. And you're already a huge success, man. You know, we're both here. We're both doing what we love doing, and speaking truth to power. Don't be pushing yourself too hard, man. So
thank you, man.
I'm
I
sure the
appreciate
chat will
that.
agree with me on that. You know, we've all got your back.
All right. Appreciate you, James. Appreciate you guys, chat. All right. Have a good rest of your week. Take care of yourself. Self-care. Find the stillness in the chaos.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. See you,
All right.
okay?
Let's see you later.
All right.